Okay, we'll start recording. All right, controversial series, October 20th. Take it away. Congregation L'Dor Va-Dor.
It's my pleasure to have as our guest my favorite heretic, Pastor Fritz Aufdencamp, and the subject of the discussion tonight is the chosen people concept. Who are the chosen people? And is this concept helping us or is it hurting us? So I'm going to have Pastor Aufdencamp lead the discussion. He's a retired Lutheran pastor, so he's at liberty to say what he wants to say because he's retired. And all he has to answer to is God and his conscience and the rest of us. So controversial issues series, we invite all types of views, especially those that are politically or religiously incorrect. So Pastor Fritz, take it away.
I think you wanted to be a Bill Maher. I think that's what you wanted to be.
Well, people have told me that I do mar the discussion sometimes, so maybe.
You can always do it. You can always do it. I'm going to begin with something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Okay.
I was camping up at Jonathan Dickinson last week, and I always go to Hope Sound in the afternoon to the beach because it's so hot. It's hard. Either you got to stay in your air-conditioned camper or go to the ocean. So I went to the ocean, and under the shelter at the ocean, there was, they have some picnic tables, and a gentleman was there, a young man in his probably late 20s. This virus is a hoax. And he'd been there before when I'd been there, but I never really talked with him. And I approached him, and I thought he was from the Bible college located right there in Hope Sound. I thought he was the 666 thing. I thought, oh, he must be from the conservative Bible college there in Hope Sound, but he wasn't. He was a Jewish person. And he said, this hoax has been started by the bad Jews. He said, there are good Jews and there are bad Jews. And the bad Jews are ones who have proposed this virus hoax. And I did not get into, I wish he had some information I could give it to Barry and have him, he came from a Jewish background insofar as why he believes the Jews created this hoax. Anyway, so much for that. I just found that very interesting.
Which hoax is he talking about?
That the coronavirus is a hoax. The virus is a hoax created by the bad Jews. And
All right, yeah.
I'm sure you would have loved to have discussed with him how his understanding came to be, but anyway, that's where it was. Anyhow, I wrote a few things down because I could go on and on about this subject, because I think this subject is the closest to the primary cause of what has caused turmoil within the human family, about who is God's chosen people. I'm not sure what other topic could come close to how this has disturbed the human family. And of course, the subject matter requires that we assume there is a God. And we cannot view the world from God's viewpoint, obviously. So the only point of view I understand is my viewpoint. And of course, I impose my viewpoint upon God. So if I were God, would I have a chosen people? Well, of course, my people would be the chosen people. If I am a Jew, my family would be God's chosen family. If I was an American Indian, I don't know how the American Indians feel about this, but I suspect they would feel that they were God's chosen people. But I know that as a Christian, we know that we are God's chosen family. If I'm a Muslim, a Mormon, again, my family is God's chosen people. This conversation reveals an insecurity on my part. What makes me secure is knowing that my family is God's chosen family. Now, if I'm a rational, mature, thinking person, the closest possibility of God having a chosen family would be the human family. I wish there was some way we could stop using God for our personal benefit. though I always do like having someone to talk to. I mean, I can talk to God anytime, no matter where I am, what time of the day. He's always there to listen. And I like that about God. And that kind of relationship has no downside. So I'm kind of okay with that. But claiming favoritism has been our plague since the beginning. I can go on to a long spiel about how sibling rivalry has been here from the beginning, and we all want to be God's favorite. It has been our Achilles heel, so to speak, since the beginning. Simply put, I think there's a phenomenon within each child that wants to be dad's favorite. As hard as we as parents try not to show favoritism, jealousy still rears its head on occasion among the kids. No matter how hard God might try not to show favoritism, his children still get jealous. In fact, we even claim he is a jealous God. We give him that part of ourselves. We can't stop ourselves from making God like us. And this can become ugly, as religions have proven down through the ages. We as parents try not to play favorites, but that's not easy, but we try. Stories such as Cain and Abel, the prodigal son, they all illustrate the desire and the tragedy from wanting to be dad's favorite. Perhaps we can look at our own families to see the destructive power of jealousy within the family, especially when sibling rivalry gets out of control. Look what happens when the attorney visits us after the death of a parent, and we have to hear about what our dad's will is all about. There we can see some ugliness among the kids. I have experienced this, unfortunately not within my own family, but people I'm very close to, that I have seen the brutality of jealousy with what the will has been from dad. And of course, we have God's will, his testament, the Old and New Testament, the will of his promises for us. And of course, we as Christians, we have been given the prime gift from God, eternal life. And as we listen to the will, it leaves everybody else out. We Christians, and we also claim to be, we have the power of attorney with God's will. Each religion, not each religion, but most religions create a system of thought that somehow comes around to making them God's favorite or God's chosen family. And this gives, and I come back to this insecurity thing that we have. This comes back to giving us a false sense of security, a false sense of superiority, a false sense of bragging rights over everyone else. The greatest challenge for us since the beginning of time has been to accept our brothers and sisters as equal brothers and sisters. And this idea of favoritism or a chosen family just raises havoc with our attempts at trying to view each other as equal brothers and sisters. It's true in politics. Boy, do we ever see it in politics. And it is true in religion. Look at what Christianity has done with the favorite child idea. We've taken this concept to a whole new level. Not only do we get the inheritance, the gift, but in the process, we have to damn everybody else. Now, how more bizarre can a theology become? I was born into a faith that exemplifies the tragic results of jealousy within the human family. Well, that's enough of my thoughts to start with. So I think we should hear some other thoughts now.
Well, I thank you very much for getting the discussion started. And I'll share some thoughts we've heard from a Christian perspective. And then now I'll share some thoughts from a Jewish perspective. And it should not be lost on anyone that Fritz is not, nor does he claim to be speaking for all of Christianity. I'm sure the rest of the Christian world will be very relieved to hear that. And similarly, I am not speaking on behalf of the Jewish religion, because Jewish people are notorious for having different opinions on things and only being able to agree on how much the third Jew should give to charity. So I'm not going to attempt to speak for the Jewish people, but I will speak from a rational Jewish perspective, which is what we seek here. And if anyone wants to use reason to try to prove me wrong or to take issue with anything Fritz has said, you're more than welcome to do so. First, I'd like to comment on some of your very astute observations. One is you were wondering whether the Native Americans thought that they were chosen. And there are many, many, many different Native American tribes before we wiped them out. And they had different mythologies. One of them was that when God fashioned human beings out of clay, he left the black people in too long, took the white people out too early out of the oven, and left the Native Americans in just the right amount of time. So they came out perfect. So yes, at least one of the tribes was not immune to that type of conceit. You mentioned that we have to presume or assume that God exists in order for us to be able to come up with this chosen people concept. The concept is actually based on a series of assumptions. One is that God exists. Two is that God is a theistic God, not a deistic God. The deistic God is one that created everything and then let everything go on its own accord and bud out after that, just set things in motion and then had nothing to do with what happened afterwards. The theistic God is an intervening God who cares about things like what day you're going to rest on and what book you're going to read and what prayers you're going to say. And also, the chosen people concept is dependent upon a God who chooses one group over the others. And it's not a coincidence that each group finds that they are the particular group that happen to be chosen. We haven't come up with a society yet that says, I think that God chooses one group over another. And it wasn't us, it was this other group over there that he chose. We haven't found that yet. I don't think we ever will. The problem that Christianity and Islam both had is that in order to claim antiquity, and at the time these religions were founded, they couldn't just say, well, I just made this up myself. They wanted to anchor their religion back onto something that had been around for a while. So they based their religion on Judaism and the Torah. The problem they had is that the Torah is very specific, that the Jewish people are God's chosen people. And so as Ricky Ricardos would say, they had some splaining to do. They had to figure out if God chose the Jews and made an eternal covenant forever and ever with the Jewish people, how could he now have abandoned the Jews and now have a covenant with the Christians and then in turn the Muslims? The way they come up with that is to say that the Jewish people must have done something really, really bad. And it was so bad that God decided to cancel his eternal covenant and switch it to someone else. Now, before we came on, it was mentioned that Martin Luther was not a great friend of the Jewish people. However, that's not the whole story. At first, Martin Luther was a great friend of the Jewish people because he knew that the Jews had been bitterly persecuted by the Catholic Church. And he came along to the Jews and say, I have good news for you. I'm rebelling against the Catholic Church. All those horrible things that they did to you, I don't approve of. I don't approve of a lot of things they do. That's why I'm starting my own version. And this version is far superior. Here it is. Check this out. I think you're going to love this version of Christianity, and I'm sure you will want to embrace it. And the Jewish people considered it and then said, yes, this is a very interesting innovation. And yes, you have removed some of the more offensive parts of the religion. However, we're still not convinced. Jesus did not fit the criteria that we understand for the Messiah, and we don't believe that God has children. We don't accept the Trinity. At that point, the love that Martin Luther had for the Jewish people turned rabid, and he became exceptionally anti-Semitic, to the point that many of his admonitions and suggestions for how to deal with the Jewish people were adopted by Hitler, including the putting Jews in ghettos, forcing them to wear a star to identify themselves, stripping them of property and rights, and a whole panoply of degradations that was implemented. And Hitler thought that he would get the support of the people because he was merely implementing what Martin Luther had suggested, as well as what the Catholic Church had been doing for a long time. Islam similarly came along and said to the Jewish people, oh, wow, you should see what I got now. We got this beautiful version of Judaism, but it's been updated. We had a new revelation made to Muhammad. Check this out. And the Muslims were very friendly to the Jewish people at first. When the Jewish people said, thanks, but no thanks, we're not interested, then they also were targeted with hatred and violence. And I believe that the Jews have never been forgiven for rejecting Jesus and Muhammad. And perhaps, Pastor Aufdencamp, you are helping to remove this stain and helping to solidify and to unify relations between the religions by challenging this basic assertion of the chosen people concept. My take on it is that the chosen people concept was invented by the Jewish people under rather benign circumstances. Supposedly, we were chosen to serve and to be a blessing to humanity, as we read in the passage of Abraham. But in later iterations of this concept, it became a concept that was used to spread hate and violence to others, as Jews deemed themselves worthy and commanded to eliminate and wipe out other groups of people who are in the land that God chose for them to have. This chosen people concept is toxic. The variants of the concept in Christianity and Islam are even more contagious and more lethal than they were in the original form, especially when you add in this part about the afterlife, subjecting those who are not chosen to eternal torment. So Pastor Aufdencamp and I are on the same page on this, coming from two different traditions. We both repudiate and reject the chosen people concept in our tradition or in other ones as well. Now, a choosing people concept, I think we can all embrace. Each one of us chooses every day what type of people we want to be. We can choose to be God-like, or to be good people, or to be loving people. We can choose to be a blessing, or we can choose to be a curse. That choice is ours. And now I would like to open it up to other folks. Pastor Aufdencamp and I have both said things that are considered heretical by most Christians and by most Jews. So I would think that someone might have a contrary point of view. If not, perhaps, Pastor Aufdencamp, we just haven't been clear enough. So maybe we'll have to restate it.
I want to say one more thing.
Go right ahead.
This past week, my former wife was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, 4th stage, stage 4, and she has like 3 months to live. And I'll be heading up north shortly to spend time with her. Even though we're divorced, we've been very close over the years. We were high school sweethearts. Anyway, I wrote a note to my siblings about Judy's situation. Of course, my siblings are all, not all, most of them are born again Christians, and they're all about praying for God's intervention to somehow give us another special gift. And I shared with them that Judy does not believe punishment is awaiting her at death. contrary to what my siblings would believe. And Judy also does not believe in a God of justice. That was our idea, the God of justice. But she does believe in a God of love, also our idea, but a better idea. And peace and calm are awaiting her when she dies. So
well, we extend our sympathies to you, Pastor Aufdencamp, and I am glad to see that she does seem to have some equanimity and some peace. Yes. There are many people who believe in an afterlife or claim to believe. In their final days, they spend time trying to shore up this belief that they really can't believe themselves. And they do that by trying to get other people to confirm this, or by surrounding themselves with others who believe it, to try to make themselves believe something they know not to be true. And it's hard for me to imagine anything sadder in one's final days than not only living a lie, but also dying with a lie, trying to make it seem
I didn't mean to divert from the subject, but I just...
No, I think you captured the subject very well. And I think it's very good that some people are able to confront reality on its own terms. And when they do so, they have a sense of calm and peace about them.
Yes.
Anybody else? Anybody want to share some views with us, either pro or con? I see Harris. Go ahead, Harris.
Well, as you know, more and more people are dropping out of religion. You had a person on the other day, a couple months ago, that had a group where he had 60,000 people in his group that don't believe in God. And in time, religion will be the minority group in the United States. That's my feeling.
Somebody has the sound coming through the background. I don't know who. It's like a radio or something. So if you could mute yourself if you have sound in the background, that would be great. Harris, what you're describing is a phenomenon that is very real. Religion in general is on the decline in the United States, and it's faced a rapid decline in Europe. In Europe, other than the Muslims who are moving in, most of Europe has become atheistic or agnostic, and they don't really ascribe to any religion. Like for instance, the Church of England doesn't go around proselytizing or talking about heaven and hell, and it's really just a way of telling people that they should do good things. In fact, I think it was Christopher Hitchens who told the joke, what do you get if you cross somebody from the Church of England and a Jehovah's Witness? And the answer is someone who knocks on your door, but for no particular reason. So a lot of these religions have become very eviscerated and don't really preach fire and brimstone anymore. I would notice this though, before we count religion out, based on the theory of evolution and survival of the fittest, I do believe that religion is being phased out by science. And because of science, people have difficulty believing in the claims of religion. When people were ignorant and didn't know about the germ theory of disease, they could blame disease on God. When they didn't know about plate tectonics, they could blame earthquakes on God. And if they didn't know anything about the sun and the moon and the planets, they could blame eclipses and supernovas on God. Today, science seems to have eclipsed, if you will, God in many respects. And so people no longer believe the claims. However, what evolution does teach us is the survival of the fittest, and those that are able to adapt are able to survive. And therefore, it's my fervent belief that religion will find a way to accommodate science, be enhanced by science, and be an ally of science, so that both of these paths to try to understand how we fit into the universe and how we can live in harmony with others. Both of these revelations working together can accomplish more than either one of them could. And as Carl Sagan said, a religion which is able to capture the awe and the wonder and the revelations and the accuracy of science will be able to transform religion in ways that we can hardly imagine. That's what we do at L'Dor Va-Dor. That is the goal of what we're trying to achieve, so that all people who believe in reason and science and common sense will be able to find a home within Jewish ideals. And I hope that all religions will go through this transformation and see themselves as one expression of the human family, whose ultimate goal is to protect and preserve creation. Anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to share? Pastor Aufdencamp, do you think there's hope for a rational type of Christianity to emerge based on the findings of science and the methodology of science?
Well, I'm somehow genetically a hopeful person. And I do believe that there's something very, very spiritual about humanity. There's a part of us that is, it's drawn to some higher power, some energy, whatever. We feel so connected with something beyond ourselves. And how we put that into practice is the challenge for pastors and other spiritual leaders. How are we going to adapt? Because there is that part of us. Harris is here tonight, and I'm sure it's because there's a part of him that is drawn to this discovery, this mystery that is around us, and wants to learn more about this mystery.
Well, what's interesting is that we are solving many aspects of the mystery, because like you say, we are interconnected with the cosmos. We did emerge our Earth and solar system from prior generations of solar systems, and every atom in our body comes from the innards of a supernova that exploded. And so we are connected with the cosmos and with each other. Religion tried to understand how that happened, but it didn't get it right, but science does. And therefore, science and religion can help us to connect with each other and with the cosmos in a wonderful way. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to mention Darwin and adaptation. I feel that all of the answers in the world lie within the people. We are all chosen. The answers to all our questions are within our own ability to use our heads and use our hearts to go in the right direction. It's not, oh God, I'm worried about the country, I'm worried about the politicians. God, you have to give us better people. Well, he has given us something. He has given us the right to vote. And if we don't take advantage of what we have and use what we have, we'll never be able to solve the problems that we have to live with. Everything is within our ability to touch and fix. And yes, we're fortunate to live in a world where science has made tremendous headway, and it's going to continue to do so. Now, it's what we do with it and how we take care of our earth, how we take care of our people. But it's not God who's going to do it for us. We have to do it for us. We are the chosen to do that.
Yeah, beautifully stated. And that is the thesis of modern Judaism, that we don't wait around for God, and that the most effective prayers are those which seek to transform us and the world around us rather than waiting for God to do it. So I agree 100% with what you're suggesting. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Go ahead, Janet.
A quick comment about God will take care of it, God will fix it. How many have we heard who have not taken the vaccine, who are either now in the hospital or refuse the vaccine because God will take care of me? God will heal me if I get sick. And that's a very sad commentary.
Well, let me just pick up on what you're saying and what Jack said. The human mind and our ability to reason is our greatest gift. We have survived over the eons, over other life forms that didn't make it because of our intelligence, because of our wit. Many other creatures didn't make it, and that's allowed us to survive. But today we have many people who have chosen not to use reason, not to use science. And often religion is the main culprit in trying to tell us, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. That was the reason why you were banished from paradise. Be simple. Believe what I'm telling you, even though it defies reason and logic. Don't use your mind. Reason, science, the right to vote, all of these things are free. They're all available. And they are all reaching out to us to accept them. But like the vaccine, and these things are all a vaccine against ignorance, like the vaccine, many people decide, even though it's free and available, they choose not to partake. And there's nothing sadder than seeing people who have everything in front of them, including a rational mind, and decide to forego its use. Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I want to get back to the part of, in my opinion, why people have abandoned religion in Europe and a lot of people in the US, because religion generally today has been hijacked by the evangelical Christians on one side that are in denial of facts and science, and they believe up is down and day is night. And on the other side is the Orthodox Jews that look down upon anyone that's not like them. And I think there's a big chasm in the middle. So that's what I wanted to say.
Now, why do you think it is that people haven't flocked to the non-fundamentalist Christians and the non-Orthodox Jews, or do you think they are?
I think that basically a lot of people, when religion is more interested in money than what you are as a person, I want to give you an example. Many years ago, I lived in Los Angeles, and I was a dues-paying member. I'd rather not mention the congregation, okay? And then I moved to San Francisco, and I came to visit friends for the holidays. So I called up the temple. I told them I'd like to attend services. And you know what they asked me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do I have a ticket? And they would not let me attend services. So I think a lot of people are realizing that religion today is all about money, and they lost sight about, you know, you can be a good person and have morals and character, and you don't have to belong to an organized religion. And in my opinion, people I know that belong to so-called organized religion, either Christians, the evangelical Christians, and some of my friends, Jewish friends on the other side, they forgot either what Jesus Christ or what the Torah said. They judge people, they look down upon people, and to me, that's not religious. And that's why I think a lot of people are leaving the religion on both sides.
I agree with your synopsis. I think it's a very astute observation. I would also say that people are fed up with extremism, which is where you started with the Orthodox and the fundamentalist Christians. And they're also fed up with the routinism. There's two extremes. One of the extremists that are totally out in left field, they're just off the wall, intolerant. And then there's the other people on the other side who are just mouthing words that don't really mean much of anything, and they're not doing anything of any significance, and people are bored with it. They're saying prayers that they've been saying all the time in the same old way, and it doesn't really do anything for them. It doesn't help them deal with the issues in their lives and in the world. And I think what people are looking for is something that captures the spirituality and the effort to understand our connection with the cosmos and the universe and others of the Orthodox and the fundamentalists, and also people who are looking for a way to connect that the liberal Protestants and Jews also have captured, the social action, the getting involved in issues, talking about things that matter. And I think people are looking for an approach to religion that can incorporate both of those and also not focus on the financial. Remember, our ancestors were interested in profits, P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S, and laws, L-A-W-S. And now they're interested in profits and loss. So there's a big difference between profits and laws and profits and loss.
And one other point I'd like to make is that I think everything in life's a trade-off, and I think part of the trade-off with technology, people relationships have suffered, and we're in a more part of the reason religion is failing. We're in a period where there's a lack of relationships between people, and that's, I think, partially to blame of technology.
Yeah, well, that also
the
offers
internet. It's
it also offers an
impersonal.
opportunity. That offers an opportunity for religion to step in and provide the social connections and the caring and concern that is often lacking on the internet. Pastor Aufdencamp, you have any response to all this?
What you just said about this communication thing, we've had virtual services at the Unitarian Church, and we're slowly moving away from that. We have some in-person, some people who would feel comfortable can have an in-person service, and we do it in the breezeway of the fellowship, but we still maintain the virtual aspect of it. And after the service, we break off into little rooms virtually. And people talk about how they've never gotten to know other church members so well from these break-off sessions after the service. So that was kind of a positive byproduct of developing virtual services.
Well, that's very good. I think it's great to have virtual services and also services of virtue. And it would also be good if they were veritable and said things that were true and not false. That would be refreshing also.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, here. Janet and I have been for about 5 years, members of the Hebrew Congregation of St. Thomas. And when the virus came, Friday nights very often, I would get on the computer and go to services with the people from St. Thomas. Janet, of course, always says, but we can never go to a breakfast on a Sunday. It's too far to swim. But nevertheless, what we missed is the human contact. To be eyeball to eyeball with members of a congregation, because they become family, they become mishpucha, they become a group of people that give us strength and support and nurturing. And that seems that in our world now, people are not looking for that anymore, unfortunately.
I think they actually long for that, and they do want it. They're just not really getting it so much. But I think everybody needs that personal connection. And there are a large number of people who want to work with others of like-minded people to try to influence the world and make it a better place. I think that if religion can accomplish that goal, it'll be fulfilling a very important need. So I think there's a big need for religion right now. And hopefully when the pandemic, as it starts to wind down, we'll be able to go back to meeting in person, and we'll have virtual and virtuous services all at the same time. Anybody else want to share some thoughts?
People talk
Go ahead,
about.
Valerie.
I'm sorry. Fritz, would you like to go first?
No.
Well, I think also a lot of times why people are pulling away to some degree is that I know for myself, every time I would go into temple, and I was brought up Orthodox, you're bad and God is going to punish you, and God is going to punish you, and you have to ben shlek and your sins, and you're not good, and God's going to punish you, and God is your father. And if I had a father like that, that would be considered child abuse. I mean, every time I turned around, God's going to punish me about something. And I finally said, stop punishing me already. I'm not an angel. Have I done bad things? I'm sure I have, and I know I have. But every time I walked into a temple, I was going to have to ask God's forgiveness. I'm going, I'm getting a little tired of this. So I said, forget it. If I do something wrong, I'll ask my husband, did I do that wrong? And if he says yes, I'm going, okay, so God forgive me. But I'm just tired. Every time I walk into temple, you know, God is going to punish you. God is going to punish you. And I think a lot of people really now are starting to, and have for many, many years, started to shy away from that. And that's even followed you, not even from the Orthodox, that's gone into the conservative, it's gone into the Reform. It's kind of followed you down. And I'm just, you know, after a while, I got tired of it. You know, I don't want to be afraid of a father. That's not the way to live. So that's what I have to say. And that's all that's what I grew up with. And I don't want to be around that.
All right, I couldn't agree with you more. Religion should bring out the best in us and try to help us to become the best we can be, and not make us feel guilty about who we are, but try to aspire to something better. And this is what religion should be all about.
When
I think,
Go ahead, Barbara.
I think people are looking for some meaning and purpose in their lives. And I think that's something that a religion can offer people. I think when you go to a service with a community, you feel a part of something. And I know from my belonging to a synagogue for many years that we did a lot of charitable work. And it just makes you feel good about other people, makes you feel good about yourself. And there's absolutely no reason to feel that you're better than anyone else. You're just part of something. You're part of a community. You're offering peace and I guess goodness to each other. Like you were saying, virtuosity. You know, that's a big part of it. And it's also something that grounds people. I think you feel less lost and less depressed if you belong to an organization like a religion.
Yeah, well, Barbara, thanks for sharing that with us. You know, the Bible represents an effort to increase human solidarity and unity, but it was one of our first efforts, and so it extended to the tribe. The tribe was the cohesive group, and beyond the tribe, those were the others. Those were the people that were not the chosen ones. But within Jewish scripture, you also see this dream and this ideal of all people living together in peace. And you have this dichotomy going on within Judaism. I think it's a stronger one within Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, because Christianity and Islam are heavily dependent on the concept of heaven and hell, and that God's going to choose some and punish others. Judaism doesn't have that concept. In Judaism, there's no people that are going to be burning in hell forever. God does wipe people out, but once you're dead, you're dead. He leaves you alone. In Christianity and Islam, when you die, that's when the real fun begins, as Christopher Hitchens says. That's when he tortures you forever. But in Judaism, you have this concept of the tribal and also the global at the same time. So getting back to our original concept about the chosen ones, when a religion or a nationality or a person says that God created this entire universe just for human beings, and just for human beings who think like me, and by the way, in the old days, they had to be of my gender also. When God becomes that narrow-minded, then we do too. The goal of religion should be to say that humanity has been chosen among all the creatures that we know of with a rational mind and the ability to improve and adapt and to be self-aware and to create a paradise here on earth. And therefore, we are all chosen by natural selection in order to really be a blessing. So far, humanity has mostly been a curse to all living things, a curse to the planet, and a curse to ourselves. But Judaism is ultimately optimistic, like Pastor Aufdencamp was saying. We are optimists. We believe that we have a pure soul and we were created in a divine image, and with our minds and our hearts, we can reverse that trend and we can be a blessing. And that is the goal of being Jewish, and it should be the goal of any religion. And we will achieve that when we look on all people of all backgrounds and all beliefs as one family. Today, if somebody doesn't believe the way you do, then they become vile and they are no longer part of your circle of friends. We need to overcome that and transcend that. So far, religion has been not helpful and usually hurtful. Religion must be transformed to view all of us as one family. That's the lesson of the fact that we are all descended from Adam and Eve. They didn't actually exist, but it's a metaphor for the fact that we're all descendants from the same source.
If evolution continues, I would think that obviously with rational minds, at some point we're going to have to recognize we are all one family. How can you not see this as history progresses, hopefully, and evolution continues to give us more enlightenment and rational thinking? How do you stay in the past?
Yeah. Go ahead, Suzanne. Suzanne wants to weigh in on this.
Speaking of all this and family and people wanting togetherness, I want to invite you all back Friday night at 8 o'clock for our Zoom and Schmooze. And you can discuss more with our illustrious rabbi and get to know each other better. And maybe one day we will have a virtual wine and cheese party.
Well,
and a Wolverine group again. That's for Jack and Janet. Thanks for all being here.
Suzanne, thank you very much for organizing this, for hosting this, and for inviting people to join us again. Everyone is welcome, and to join us anytime. You don't have to be a member. Pastor Aufdencamp poses the question, how is it that people haven't seen the obvious, that we're all part of one family and we all should treat each other well? If you look at the world today, you will see that there are science deniers, there are fact deniers, there are people who don't open up their eyes to see, and also human beings are a product of our rational mind and also our instincts. And some of these instincts are not particularly helpful. They're very tribal, they're territorial, we have violent instincts. The goal of religion is to use the heart and the mind to overcome these instincts so that we will see what should be blindingly obvious, that we are all one family, and that we'll be much better off when we treat each other that way. Pastor Aufdencamp, I just want to thank you not only for appearing with us tonight, but for being a voice of reason and a great ally of the Jewish people, standing up for us against those who say that we're condemned and that we have lost connection with the divine. You are a true friend of the Jewish people. And not only that, you're a true friend of humanity and of people who are rational thinkers. And for that, my yarmulke is off to you. I thank you for being with us tonight. And I thank you sincerely for trying to bring enlightenment to the world and end the scourge of anti-Semitism. I know of nobody who fights anti-Semitism more effectively and more courageously than you. And I do thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think, Harris, did you want to close us out?
Yeah, I just want to say how lucky you are to have a good friend in Fritz. I think we're lucky, and you're very lucky to have Fritz as your good friend.
We are very lucky, and we're also lucky, Harris, to have you with your beautiful voice that you share with us, and Fritz on the harmonica, which we'll invite him to share a ditty with us on the harmonica. But for now, this concludes our controversial issue series. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you on Shabbat. We got a great Shabbat service for you online. Check it out. Live long and prosper, everybody.
Thanks for the memory.